Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Mike Wright, Edge Home Finance. And I'm here with a long time buddy, Bob McNamara, Coldwell Banker. Thank you for being on our show, buddy.
Absolutely, Michael. It's great to be here.
My Realtor of the Week. Boy, do we got some stories to get into, buddy.
Yeah, we've seen a few.
Well, we'll behave during the show, but I appreciate you on, buddy.
You bet.
Yeah,
Thanks for
that's
having
fantastic.
me,
Well, we've been buddies and have golfed many a times and got plenty of stories, but we're going to keep it focused on real estate today. And Bobby, tell me about your upbringing, man. I mean, I know obviously, but tell me about your family and how you got into real estate, that old fun stuff.
Okay, sure. Well, you know what? It's funny. Time goes by pretty fast. And I started 35 plus years ago.
Jesus.
And so I started out actually painting and taking wallpaper off and pulling carpet.
Yeah.
And a couple of realtors came into our house and said, geez, we're going to show the house if you guys are almost done. And at that point, I thought, you know what? This is a lot of work for not a lot of return. So I decided to be a realtor.
Got it.
So that was 35 years ago. And
Now,
so
were your parents at all in real estate?
You know what? I asked my mother to join me because she did such
That's
a great job on the weekends. She was always looking at the neighbors.
Yeah.
She was always going through the want ads and geez, you know, Barry's house is for sale and Mrs. Swanson's house is for sale. And I said, well, geez, you know the market probably as well as anybody. Why don't you join me? And so we started her about 3 years after I started.
Got it.
And we worked as a team for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's super cool. So Bob's background, Pinky McNamara uncle, right?
Yep.
Obviously very well known down at the U. Bob Sr., huge tennis person at the U. Both have contributed enormous amounts of money to the University of Minnesota. Bob has been brought up in that environment, so extremely well connected. And to this day, you have a lot of their buddies that are still your buddies.
Well, you know, it's funny because I grew up with my Uncle Pinky and Father Bob, and it was a blast.
And Father Bob wasn't a priest by any means, so we're going to get this straight right away.
Right. Yeah. So Big Bob and Pinky, they were just a hoot to hang out with. So
Yeah.
I met all their buddies at all the football banquets and all the tennis tournaments and all the golf outings. And it was great to see these guys. And at the end of the day, they were just real guys.
Right.
And then I met all the people that came along with them. And so it was all their kids and it was all their friends and family and stuff like that. So it was a great connection.
Well, and you have nurtured it so well. But the other thing I want to applaud Bob for is we got a group of buddies. We grew up in Edina, and we've got a bunch of friends. Well, Bob's been the one that has called often to everyone saying, let's get together. And that art in and of itself is a big task, but you keep it up, buddy.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun because all of our buddies, there's not a lot of people that have the same friends from college or even high school. And our friends, our network is great because these guys do want to get together.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a lunch at Bunny's, or whether we're going out and playing golf, or we're going to the Gopher
Maynard's,
game,
whatever.
you know, and so everybody's always willing to go. And so I'm fortunate because all I do is pick up the phone and say, hey, you know, you want to meet 4 or 5 or 10 of us, and usually half of them are in.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Well, but I think that your ability to farm the U, your obviously immediate friends from high school and college, etc. You've done a great job in keeping people in contact with you, which has it benefited you work-wise?
Yeah, it has. It's always fun to see where it's going to lead because you don't know.
Right.
And so all of a sudden somebody's mom or dad is making a change, or their kids are making a change, or their brother and sister, and so you really never know where it's going to come from. But you know, all of a sudden, magically, you know, you're working with somebody's son, or daughter, or mother, or uncle,
right?
And so it's a great lead, and it's a great end.
Well, and you have, so your background. Let's touch base a little bit on that.
Sure.
So you started at Coldwell.
I did. So I started way back, 35 years ago. I started at Merrill Lynch.
Okay.
And so I was across the street at the General Sports, and I saw the Merrill Lynch on the corner, and I just walked in one day for fun. and just a great guy, father knows best kind of guy, Frank Kreiser. And he said, "Hey, Bob, you should think about real estate." I said, "Well, I am." And so he said, "Well, come work for us." So I started with him 35 years ago, and it was a blast. He was my mentor and told me, "Hey, the easiest way to get started in this business is just, show up."
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing for most people, is that sometimes it's hard to show up, and even an open house. You just a couple hours a weekend, but a lot of people say, "Well, you know what, I'm busy." Or I want to go to the game. So he was instrumental in me just saying, "Hey, you know what, just pick a couple hours on a weekend and you're going to feed your pipeline."
So do you do for your marketing then, besides friends, family,
Sure.
Former clients, are you working a lot of open houses?
Yeah, I do. So I do opens every weekend.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
and I've done them, and I like to do my own open houses, my own listings.
Yeah.
And because then, and what people have done lately, Mike, is they're very proactive. And so I'm in a great office, Caldwell Banker Wayzata.
Yeah.
A lot of the agents they're on the cutting edge. And
Right.
so it used to be where you'd just hang a rider on your sign and say, "Hey, I'm open Sunday from 2 to 4.
Right.
But nowadays what people are doing is that all the social media, they're going on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and saying, "Hey, come to my open." And then what they're doing too is that they're even making flyers, and they're walking around the neighborhood and putting 50 or 100 out in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then you're always guaranteed to get a handful or a dozen people through. And so the whole game has changed since we started.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
And I think you brought up in our conversations leading into this, you brought up a very interesting point, which I realize here. It's nice to go into an office, even if we're the old hats, right? To learn from these
Right.
cats that are hungry and progressive in their marketing. Do you find that in that office?
Oh, it's great. And that's the fun part about the office, is that there's some older agents that are veterans that have been there for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of see what they're doing. And one of the agents told me a long, long time ago, he said, just figure out who's doing the business and just copy them.
Right.
And if it works for them, figure out what they're doing and just, mimic that. And so, but the open house has really been the ticket. And then the people at the Wayzata Caldwell Banker are great because they do new construction.
Right.
And they do hobby farms, and we've got a commercial division. And so I've done, 24 commercial properties in the last 35 years. And if I don't know how to do it, or I don't have the answer, I can just go down the hallway, or I can network with somebody and say, "Hey, what would you do if you were me?" And that's my question. What would you do? And people love to tell you what they would do,
Right.
because it's a compliment.
Do you find that still? I mean, it used to get to where the old school would be like, "Don't look over my shoulder." One of these things is that office,
Yeah.
because you've got a lot of very successful people.
Yes.
Egos set aside for the most part, or,
For the most part, they are set aside, and everybody has a pretty nice approach at that office, and really the real estate industry has changed a lot.
Yeah.
People want to help people.
Good,
And
good.
the people that aren't in it for the long haul, they go away pretty fast, just because they may not show up.
Right.
But the agents in our office, and it's great because I actually go into the office daily.
Yeah.
And I've got a great setting. Who doesn't want to drive into Lake Minnetonka every
Right,
day? I was
right.
on 50th and France and Edina, not quite as visual.
Yes.
Back in the day, next to the Red Barn, though, that was great.
Yep.
But now, I'm going out to the lake every day,
Yeah.
and there's always, 24 people there. Tony Mauer's our leading, he's the VP over
Yeah,
there, and he's
sure.
our manager, and he's just fabulous.
And is he receptive? I mean, do people come into him all the time? I know we got Tom Hollis here.
Sure.
And people are banking on him for answers.
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
that how he is as well?
Yeah, he's just great. And you know what he is as much is he's very visible. And so
Okay.
like this weekend we had the JJ Hills
Yeah.
over in Wayzata, and then you've got the different the food drives, and
Yeah.
you've got the Christmas trees, and he's always leading. And so, he's there. And so he's got a Santa hat on, or he's out at the lake, or
Yeah.
just this last weekend he was out there manning our booth.
Do you find, Bob, with your experience, that you can fall out of your daily disciplines, or are you real religious in saying, "I'm going to the office every day"?
Yeah.
Because I know, first of all, this guy is a golfer, is unbelievable. He's the only guy I know that can hit a driver on a par 3 and land it within, feet of the cup. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, well, that's just a lack of clubs, and so I've kind of learned to figure that out. But it's funny because the office environment, it just makes you want to go in.
Yeah,
so
correct,
it's easy.
correct.
But you know what? I've just found everything's about balance. And so if I can golf a little bit or play some racquetball or go for a walk or my significant Katie Burke will go on a great bike ride or go out to Maynard's or maybe Fletcher's for burger night, then it's just great balance. And so if you have a little bit of enough going on, then you're excited to go to the office because you've got a tennis game or something going on later or a golfer game. But it really feeds itself. And I'm a list guy. And so what I do is I have a list. I'm an old school. My dad used to have a list.
Written out, notebook?
Written out,
yeah. Good,
and
good.
everybody else has their calendar on their phone and a little beep. I'm surprised mine hasn't gone off yet. But I just make a list, and then I just go down it. And so it gives me a little direction. It keeps me on point.
Yeah.
And I can get more done.
You reference your dad, and I've just got an enormous amount of respect for him. He was a phenomenal guy, and both him and Pinky at the U, and Max Bar and Duff's.
Yep.
And I mean, these are old school memories and stuff, but they were always there. Bob Sr. owned Max Bar. Bobby was a bartender there, and the friendship that those two guys had up till he passed was the coolest thing one could ask for.
Yeah.
I applaud that.
Well, like I said, I was really fortunate to grow up with all those fellas.
Yeah.
Everybody was a character. And there are 30 of them from the University of Minnesota. My Uncle Pinky and Billy By and Vern Gagne.
Sure.
And Phil McElroy. And all these guys would run up to Bay Lake. And they did it for 35 years. And they would go up there and they'd have a tennis outing, and then they'd have a golf outing, and then they'd go and sing karaoke. And so I've got pictures still of these 30 guys, and then one by one, of course, somebody didn't make it or one passed. But to grow up with all these guys, and just, there's more to life than trying to figure out how much money you're going to make or how many houses you're going to sell. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's at zero when it's over. Yep. And so you can put a lot of things in your bank, but you got to get away and do those Bay Lakes and those golf outings like we did last year. It's just what makes it all complete.
Well, and you're seeing this and now living it yourself. It's really cool to watch. And I know as a dear friend of yours, Steve Wallstead and a number of these guys, we love you to get these gatherings, for lunch. It's great.
Sure.
Meet up at Bunny's, let's have some lunch, and you have some good laughs, and we're all different personalities, that's for sure.
Well, and it makes it fun, and that's where, you never know when you're going to run into somebody that really needs something or a favor or has an idea. Maybe their parents are downsizing, maybe their kids are looking for their first-time home buyers. So it's really a ministry in real estate where you're available for your friends or family or the network, but you really never know what the situation's going to be. And a lot of them are really fun and exciting. First-time home buyers, and you're moving up, and you're having another child, and you need to get a bigger house. And then there's the ones that are a little bit more challenging, where maybe somebody passed.
Yes.
Maybe you've got an estate. Maybe there's a divorce situation, or maybe they're transferring in or out of town. So the opportunities, and that's what's so fun about the job, and I think a lot of the realtors will agree, is that you never know what the situation you're going to run into. And so there's so much variety in our bit. It never gets old. It never gets stale.
Well, you're starting to deal with some of our kids.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild to see, isn't it, Bobby Mack?
Yeah, it's funny because, you go through and all of a sudden you start a long time ago, and I'm selling all of our buddies' houses or what have you, and then all of a sudden, you're selling them 2 or 3 times over.
Right.
Then the kids or the parents.
Yeah.
And then you can always reconnect that way with the families, and so it's really powerful.
Do you find yourself? I want to touch base. I'm going to sidestep.
Sure.
Let's talk about Katie.
Yeah.
Katie is an amazing lady that has been very instrumental in the women's
Team women.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about how she has been important for you, not only from a business perspective, but also from a best friend
Sure.
perspective as well.
Well, and I think, it's really about everybody in your family, and
Yeah.
it really is the family. And so Katie and I were fortunate. We've known each other our whole lives.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the same neighborhood. My sisters played with her sisters, so I'm talking about Katie Burke.
Yep.
And Katie Burke runs a company. She's the executive director of Team Women.
Yeah.
And Team Women, basically what they do is it's young women, young girls that start from the classroom, and they go through the boardroom. And they have mentorships, and they start businesses. And the fun part about that is that it's so exciting to see the young gals grow through their lives, and then their mothers get involved,
Yeah.
and their grandmothers get involved, and they have conferences and banquets, and they have events where they go and they go see the PGA Tour, or they go see
Beautiful.
And so it's really a fun thing. But Katie's been instrumental in my life, just for the fact that she's so supportive and she's so up. And I don't know about you, but most of the people in my world, my life, are up people.
Yeah, you have to be.
It's just really easier to get up every day if you've got a sunny disposition.
Yep.
And Katie's the sunniest person I've ever met.
Yeah, nice.
And so we can be driving down a street, and she'll say, "This is my favorite street." And I'm like, "Wow, that's never heard that before." Do you know what I mean? And so, but it's just that simple and innocent. But she's the best.
So, and she's instrumental and supportive of you. And I think that even with the friends, because you guys have grown up all the same age, it makes it so much easier as well. But I've sat from afar and watched her, and what she is doing is amazing.
Yeah.
So make sure you give her props.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I certainly will. And she's, she's always on the go. And, our biggest thing is just to show up and make sure that you give yourself that opportunity to be in the right place at the right time. Because a lot of it isn't just, boy, that was weird, that was a happenstance or a coincidence.
Right.
A lot of this really is meant to be, if you just put yourself in the right place, then you find out that, geez, this is great. I ran into somebody I was hoping to run into, or I've always wanted to meet. And all of a sudden you say, well, geez, that was weird. What a strange thing. And you go, geez, I guess that really wasn't weird. I kind of put myself in that position.
Yes.
Same with the real estate.
I think it's imperative with the real estate, because you have to be, many are introverted to a certain degree, but you have to be that.
Sure.
Get out and do this. I mean,
Sure.
Bobby, you and I have known one another for a long time, and when I called you to do this, I was like, this is going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Because I admire how you've succeeded in the real estate world. You've done commercial, you've done residential, but you've won all the time, and you're around people that are like-minded, but you got a positive attitude. And I admire that. Yeah.
I thank you, Mike. It's been great. And like I said, you never really know what you're going to be asked to help with.
Yeah.
And you really are helping. And so, it's really funny, because all of a sudden I've had people say, hey, geez, have you ever sold a church before?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I haven't, but I'm all in. And so now I've sold 3 churches, and a couple funeral homes, and a couple restaurants.
Beautiful.
And you just never really know. And frankly, because I have such a huge network at Coldwell Banker, then I can ask for the direction, because who knows how to measure a church?
Well, but I think it's important too, because there's a lot of teams. Per se, no matter where you're at, we're a team. So now you got your pod of 15 people.
Right.
10 people, whatever the number be, but you've got an office, and that office is successful.
Yeah.
And it's not you're on my team or anything else, but I'd love to help you out.
Sure.
Where do you see yourself 5 years? We're ripping that young age of 61. What's the game plan?
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to continue selling?
You know what? I love it. And so, the dream has always been to, obviously in the winter months, there's not as much going on here. And so, a lot of my friends right now, they've got a dual license. And so they'll go to Arizona, or they'll go to Florida, or wherever they end up. And so the dream would be at some point to, hey, you know what, maybe for 3 or 4 months of the year, you go somewhere else and get a license and maybe help the transplants in Minnesota that are in Florida.
Yeah.
That's always been kind of the dream. Katie and I would love to get away and work, with all this remote working.
Yeah, right.
You can pretty much work anywhere now. And so, yeah.
But I think it's always staying top of mind. And I
Yeah.
use Florida because I've been there. I'm there, right? And it's more difficult when you go down there when you don't know somebody. You need your tentacles up here
That's right.
to bring that business down there.
That's right.
And I know that your family has been big in Naples.
Yeah.
I don't believe you got a place down there anymore.
Yeah, so we've got, so my family's got 2 places in Naples.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, and the fun part about it is that in my dream, when I was down there last, I went into the Caldwell Banker office on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is a pretty swanky, big, fun area. Everybody's down there, and there's Tommy Bahama's restaurant, which we go to,
Sure.
and the Tin City and the Wharf.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of fun little places to get away, and the tennis courts are right behind there, which Katie and I love to play tennis every
Right.
day. And so, but we're fortunate. My sister and husband, her husband bought a place many, many years ago down
Yeah.
in Naples, and so they've been
So you
down
still
there.
get down there.
Yeah, and then my in-laws are down there as well. They're just in the same units,
Beautiful.
right on the water.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like getting up and walking down the beach, Mike.
No, it's just, and it's as winter approaches,
Yeah.
we always get eager. But Minnesota's been good to you. I mean, Minnesota is where you've been. Tell me about, and we'll wrap this up, but
Sure.
tell me about some of the mentors that have helped you and what advice you would share to those that are
Sure.
either new in the business or been here forever and a day.
Sure. Well, and it's a great point because the mentors are everything. Like
Right.
Frank Kreiser was the mentor. I used to see him in the office, and he'd look at me with this funny smile, and he'd go, "So where are you going to be this weekend doing your open house?" And I'd go, "Oh no, gosh!" And so then I'd have to find an open house and say, "Hey, Frank, I am doing an open house." And so he was great. He's the one that instilled that work ethic in me.
Nice.
And so he was the best. And then just all the different agents, I've met hundreds of agents in the last 35 years.
Kevin Sharkey?
Well, Kevin was one of my brokers over at a company that I worked at. It was called Independent Brokers
Yeah.
Realty. It was
Yeah.
IBR.
Yep.
And so Kevin and I worked together, and then I actually left Caldwell Banker and opened up Independent Brokers Realty.
Sure.
And so I ran that Minneapolis office for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And then when it became Better Homes and Gardens, then what I did is I transferred back to Caldwell Banker for the commercial side
Yeah.
of the business. But it's just guys like Kevin that I still know and see,
Yeah.
and all the fellows along the way and the gals, and everybody's got a different idea. I think the easiest way to get started is, for any new agents, and I love the new agents because I always go out of my way to say hello to them because you can see they're green, they're awkward. They don't want to approach people that they perceive as veterans that have been in it. They don't
Sure.
want to bother us.
Right.
But you know what? I always reach out and make sure they have my number. Let me know if you ever need anything because it was really important for me to have those people that could say, hey, here's how to write a purchase agreement or here's how to do an inspection. And the simple stuff, Mike, is the easiest. And you know this.
Yeah.
I know when we've been out, you've always got a business card in your pocket. I just know.
It's easy things.
Well, but you know what? It's stuff that you don't think.
Right,
And so,
right.
and you're out too. You're at a golf tournament or an event or a function or a wedding now. We're at all these weddings from our kids, right?
Right.
And so, and everybody, but the people always say, by the way, you have a business card.
Right.
And so, by golly, the time I don't have one in my pocket, that's when somebody asks me, hey, I got a big lake house to sell. Give me your card. And you go, oh my gosh, I didn't bring one today.
I just gave my last one to that other guy.
Yeah, to the other realtor that's not going to use me. Yeah, for sure. And so I know, and that's what I love about you too. You always answer the phone when I call you.
Yeah.
And that's the ticket is you have to answer your phone. And some of these newer people or agents, they're so inaccessible that you can maybe send them an email or hey write an
text
offer and send it over, but it's that personal touch. And because you and I are older and we're veterans,
Yep.
We really know the power of just the voice and picking up your phone and answering it when they call.
Do you find that's an industry thing or an age thing? Probably an age thing, I would think.
You know what? I think it's evolved.
Yeah.
And so I think that the veterans love to pick up the phone and talk and say, hey, I know you've got 5 offers on your property. Can you give me any idea? What's your preferred closing date? What's the motivation? Is there anything that you would do if you were me? That's a great question I always ask. What would you do if you were me? I mean, how can I make this work? And people, they love to tell you.
Or do you find listing agents receptive to you calling?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and most of them are receptive. Very few are, they're put out because everybody's getting calls.
Of course.
And you hope that you're getting a legitimate call. There's a lot of solicitations. And so, you just have to make sure you answer your phone, because I've gotten long distance phone calls and picked it up, and somebody says, "Oh, geez, you're the first guy that's answered," or, and I've got a house to sell.
Right.
And you go, "Oh, I almost didn't answer it. I was in a meeting, and, it's a number I didn't recognize." And I can't tell you how many times that's happened. So you better err on the side of just do it.
So what I'm kind of gathering from you, Bobby, is you've been successful because you reach out, you stay in contact with friends, family, all these people that know, like, and trust you, right? But you're also humble enough to get out and grind. You don't mind working open houses and doing a couple of weekend and selling homes that way.
Yeah.
But it's also just constantly reaching out, meeting people, answering your phones.
Yeah,
Correct?
well, and it is, and it's about the opportunity. Just put yourself in an opportunity, and you don't want to be obnoxious. You don't want to be out,
Right.
waving around flags on the corner and saying, "Hey, are you thinking of buying and selling?" It's got to be within reason. You don't want to be that guy that's passing out the card at somebody's funeral, or it's silly stuff.
And people realize the authenticity of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that because he also does another job, which we're not going to touch base on this deal, but his heart is so passionate for what is best for the buyers and the sellers. And I think that comes through so much with your business.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
And it's about giving back.
Yeah. Well, we're the same age. He looks like he's about 45, so he must be doing something right, Bobby Mack. And
it's that clean living, Mike.
Oh, brother, here we go.
We got him another show with some stories, I think.
We'll be talking to you next week.
Yeah, totally. No, that's great, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate you coming on as a Realtor of the Week.
Yeah.
Your friendship means the world to me, man. And I
Back at you.
sincerely mean that. And it's fun as we've grown in kind of the same arenas to watch both be successful. So thank you very much for coming on.
That's right.
For you guys on
Michael,
here, Realtor
thanks,
Connect,
brother.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.
Tremendously. For you guys here on Realtor Connect, thanks for joining us. I hope you learn a lot from Bob, because he's been damn good and succeeded for a lot of years doing it. YouTube, Instagram, please follow us, Realtor of the Week. We appreciate y'all coming in on Wednesday. Have an amazing day.